probably go ahead and get started, and then other folks will, join when they're able to.
All right. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar in partnership with Solidarity Farm, Foodshed Distro, Project New Village, and Botanical Community Development Initiatives. We are so excited for this presentation today, and my name here is Sona Desai. I'm the Associate Director at the San Diego Food System Alliance. We are a nonprofit organization that works across sectors to catalyze food system transformation in the region. And we have three pillars of our work. We primarily do work across as a convener, so we promote collaboration, we build networks, we really try to set out planning and evaluation efforts for food systems development in the region. And then we have an advocacy arm, so we work to influence policy and activate the community. And then the third area of our work is really trying to catalyze transformation through programs and capacity building services. So like many of you that are joining, we've shifted a lot of our priorities over the past several months, and we have definitely developed a resource page that's active on our website in response to COVID-19. And we also developed an issue brief a couple of months ago that really looks at the impacts, particularly across food and farm workers, food businesses, farms and fisheries, and the resulting impacts on food security in the region. So you can find this issue brief both on our website, it's linked on this slide deck, and we'll definitely be sharing the slide deck and the recording after today's presentation. So just some sort of tips on joining us today. We do have a Q&A on here, and so please use the Q&A. We're very excited to have an engaging conversation. We want to make sure everyone feels like they can participate and have their voices heard. Feel free to use the chat box throughout. We'll probably start with all of the presentations, and then we will have a dedicated Q&A, plenty of time reserved for Q&A at the end of today's presentation. You can also use the raise hand function if you want to have a conversation live with any of the presenters. So with that said, whose food? Our food. Very exciting to introduce our four amazing panelists. I'll start with Ellie Igo with Solidarity Farm and Foodshed, and then we'll also have Bianca Bonilla from Botanical Community Development Initiatives, Diane Moss from Project New Village, and Bea Alvarez with Solidarity Farm. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ellie.
Right.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
We are going to do our best today to make sure that we don't just talk at you. So we've assembled some short videos to help us tell the story. And here is the first one to give you a little background on how we got to where we are right now. On November 4th and 5th, a coalition of organizations came together at Palma Tribal Farms for the carbon sink farming convergence. Our goal was to discover new ways of working towards a resilient future by building a legitimate movement led by BIPOC farmers. That's Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Although it was difficult to distill the outcomes of our time together, four primary themes did emerge. Theme 1, cultivate relationships of mutual aid. Theme 2, create resource equity around critical issues like land and access to capital. Theme 3, co-create demonstration projects with farmers and technical advisors on equal footing. And Theme 4, build regional food sovereignty, resource, and planning hubs. Over the months that followed, our crew built on these ideas to form Foodshed Incorporated. We believed that we could slowly create a distribution business that brought farmers to the center, where we could share resources and information with each other and strengthen our individual farms. We believe that we could implement carbon farming practices to make our farms and food systems more resilient, and that we could build connections with neighborhoods and communities who have been left out of the local food movement. Our theory was that building resilience and connections would help us be prepared for the impending climate crisis. We launched on March 1st.
All right, so we all know what happened in mid-March. Things definitely kicked into high gear at that point. And we worked together, or right before things really got going, we actually had a moment to think about what we wanted Foodshed to be and how to distill these 4 ideas from the carbon sink convergence and really make them live in our organization. So we call those our points of unity, and we're going to have our Foodshed farmers and members share those with you now.
Farmer-owned. Foodshed is a S corporation controlled by shareholders who must be owners of an independent commercial farm business. We cooperate to produce, harvest, and distribute our fruits, vegetables, and value-added produce in a way that enhances the viability of our independent operations and builds equity through increased farmer ownership of the local food supply chain.
Cooperatively operated. Foodshed farmers are committed to the success of each other's farm businesses. Towards that end, we increase our potential to cooperatively purchase and share equipment, collaborate on supply orders, manage umbrella insurance policies, collectively seek technical assistance and public-private investment, and work together to enhance our regenerative farming practices.
One of our principles that I'm most excited about is that we're committed to regenerative practices. Foodshed invests in farmer-led research and implementation projects that regenerate soil and integrate traditional ecological knowledge. Thank you.
One of our points of unity is that we are committed to equity. Foodshed prioritizes purchasing from BIPAC farmers and distributing to communities of color. We are committed to equity in our leadership, and we'll always have a majority of BIPAC as shareholders and employees.
Fostering interdependence. Creating Foodshed was our strategy to offset the worst impacts of the impending climate crisis. The coronavirus has shown us that we must act now to reduce our dependency on oppressive and harmful systems and co-create livelihoods based on interdependence.
Uplifting beginning farmers. A healthy future depends on a diversity of new stewards launching successful farm businesses, and Foodshed is committed to supporting, purchasing from, and learning alongside beginning farmers.
All right, so there you have our points of unity, and we can't see the chat box, so hopefully we'll just kind of pass through all of these things and then come back.
Yeah, come back to at the end for some questions that you might have on this time.
Yeah. So we thought we'd dig in a little bit and give you guys some background on our thinking as we addressed. So we had sort of this theoretical framework, and then we were thrown into this emergency response. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we formulated our plan and our operations, and then we'll get to hear from our farmers and partners. So the first thing we did is we sat down to formulate a plan. We prioritized the personal safety of our crew and our family. We identified all our assets and what we had to work with. And we built on existing relationships and asked them to, our existing folks to make contacts with people who we could partner with to achieve our goals. And our concept that we would reach just a little bit further than what our capacity was, which we call reaching without extended risk. You want to talk about step 2?
Yeah, and step 2 was basically how we can articulate what our needs are and clarifying, especially in writing, what we need to take decisive action, activate allies to build support, and try to not panic with rising need. And actually, reaching out to, finding what are the different networks that we can create in terms to meet those needs, and what are the different steps that we can take to build those allyships and create the support that we need.
So then step 3 was making clear commitments and following through on our commitment to equity. So it was really important to us, we had reached out, we articulate what we needed in the form of proposals to donors. We'd gotten positive response from them, and they put money behind it. We raised about $200,000 in support pretty quickly. And so we wanted to make sure that went into buying first from BIPOC farmers, distributing, as Bea talks about it, to zone 1 first, which is the people of Palma who live on the reservation here, and our neighbors, and then working out from there. And finally, to keep our systemic goals in mind, that emergency response is incredibly important. But if we can do emergency response while also trying to make systemic impact, then we might be able to move past or use the emergency as a catalyst for change.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we came up with. Foodshed is now actively involved in 2 different kinds of distribution. The first we call our equity distribution. We buy at the highest price possible from our farmers. And we distribute that at $18 a bag for 6 or 7 items. So the 2 to 250 goes, right, it's probably $14 to $15 for us to aggregate the bag, and then the rest of us goes into vehicle maintenance, gas, packaging, insurance, with that extra $4 per bag. It's distributed by our partners at no cost, or we also have a pay what you can sliding scale program in city heights. But the key is that staffing of the equity programs is paid by grants. So that makes a big difference in offsetting and prices. Then we have our wholesale distro. So we buy at 70 to 80% of the above price. And then we use, 30%, let's just say 20 to 30% to cover the distribution costs. And we also talk a lot about our triple impact, and that, every dollar that's invested in buying from a farmer, that same dollar also serves a family, and then also recirculates in the local economy. And so it's really important that we make sure to talk about that because it's unique, and dollars don't just serve, one outcome. All right, so this is our, really basic hub model, and we wanted to talk about our wheel, if you will, and we're going to talk about the different parts of that wheel. The first is the center, the Foodshed farmers that are organized for distribution and sharing of resources. So we've sourced from a total of 23 farms, and 8 of those are what we call our regular farmers, and that's growing as our distribution grows. We currently have 4 owners of the cooperative, and we're also working on our bylaws, and within the goal is that if you source to Foodshed for 6 months, then we can talk about becoming a shareholder. So how it works is we hold standing orders with our urban farmers. We always buy, for example, 75 bunches of greens per week from the Bahati Mamas at New Roots. The other farmers, we receive their availability on Wednesday, and we place an order for Friday delivery. And then also on Sunday, we receive availability and place order for Tuesday delivery. And we do that at our urban pickup spot in San Diego and bring it back up to North County for distribution. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to hear from our farmers. So we're going to start with Tina Chatura at Wakama Farms.
Hi, my name is Tina Chatura, and I am here at Harbor Farm in Ramona. But my name really I use for farming is Hukama, meaning relationships. So it's Hukama Produce at Harbor Farms in Ramona. I became a farmer while I was growing up in Africa. So we used to do farming a lot with my mom. My mom used to grow tomatoes, peppers, and everything. And when I got married, my mother-in-law used to grow cotton and corn, and that's how I was inspired. So when I was in Africa, I used to do farming too. I did a lot of kale, a lot of tomatoes, carrots, and everything. So when I came here, the first thing I did was to look for a place for farming. And finally, I got somewhere where I could start. At first, when I planted the first plants in January, I didn't know what to do with them because we went at lockdown that very week of lockdown when the farmers markets were closed. I was so desperate. I just wanted to give away everything, and I was so ready and calling people to come and get food for free. And then finally, I got in touch with Foodshed, and then it changes everything around, and I started supplying with everything I had, and I'm happy because everything is going well. My hope for the future is to grow big. I want to grow big. I want to really do good farming. I wish I could buy my own farm. I would say to keep our consistency of growing things. And especially when you're doing something you love, you don't want to run out of stuff. Like when somebody wants something and you don't have it, I feel bad about that. So I would encourage other farmers to be like very consistent. Like, let's keep track on what we're planting. If we're planting something, we plant it now. In 2 weeks, we put another one in, so that people get the food all the time, and then we don't run short. I feel so bad when I run short.
Yeah, that would be the worst thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. We love growing food with you.
Thank you so much.
So Tina is a very experienced farmer, but we also wanted to share a startup project. Solidarity Farm, where Bea and I live, is owned by the Pama Band of Mission Indians. We rent from them, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to steward this land. And as Tanae Johnson's going to explain in this video, they have been growing citrus, avocados, and now olives for quite some time. But when COVID hit, they decided to make a transition. Mm-hmm. And so, and it helps show how Foodshed can really support beginning farmers. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tanae Johnson, and I'm from the Pama Band of Mission Indians, here located in northern San Diego, at the foothills of beautiful Palomar Mountain. And actually this farm was an idea that came from our tribal chairman, Tama Aguilar. And he felt during this pandemic, when COVID really hit, was really self-sustainability and being able to, sustain our people throughout this pandemic in a healthy, organic way. And so we do call it Tribal Gardens, Palma Tribal Gardens. It's out here on 2 acres of really good soil, land. It's very, very nice. Anyhow, so we went ahead and hired our own people locally from the reservations around us also. And they all came together, and by the mentorship at which Solidarity had provided us, we're able to be able to transform this land into this beautiful mecca that you see now of greenery and organic vegetables, which will see us throughout our days, you know, in the happenstance that we continue this. And so what comes with growing this, though, also is marketing it and trying to get it out there and getting it distributed to other folks who would be in need of food or, you know, vegetables and what have you. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, is just how to get it distributed. How do we get it out on the market now that it's come to fruition and that it's grown to this beautiful magnitude? And what do we do with the extra stuff after we fed our own people? And so that's where we stand right now here today.
So hopefully that gives you a little idea of some of the farmers that we're working with. And now we want to transition to going out to the, you call it the edges of the spokes.
Yes.
And these are our community partners, and we're so lucky today to have 2 of them with us that are going to present to you. So real quickly, our partners manage the community interface and deliveries with their people. Right now, we distribute to approximately 350 families per week, and we probably have the capacity to double that by December is what we're working towards. Some partners have a standing order for 7 items per week, and do the equity bag program. Some partners order from our weekly availability list. And we personally manage the City Heights Fresh 5 Hub. So with that, we're going to turn it over and unmute the incredibly fabulous and talented Bianca Bonilla to talk about our partnership with Botanical Community Development Initiatives. Uh-oh.
You can unmute her. Maybe because we are sharing the screen.
She has to unmute herself.
Yeah.
We knew it couldn't go too smoothly.
Can you hear me? Hello?
That's right.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Bianca. Now we can.
Okay. So I had to let me know if I'm coming in and out because I cannot see the screen. And I just tried to call in, but I don't think that worked very well. So let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we can see you. You're doing great. So your slide is up that says Greening Spaces program.
Okay, great. So we're Botanical Community Development Initiative, and we work on community development projects through and with plants. And so the project I'm going to talk about today and how we are collaborating with Foodshed Distro through our Greening Spaces program. And so this is where we seek to create community relevant green spaces that improve the lives of people in generally underserved areas. So as an example, this is a urban farm that we helped co-create with the community at an African American church in North County, San Diego, and Oceanside. So next slide, please. So our space-based project of Community Roots Farm is located in Eastern Oceanside, and this is also where BCDI's office is located. And so Community Roots Farm is located in a neighborhood. We have about an acre under production, and it's a full-on no-till urban production farm where we grow fruits and vegetables, herbs and flowers. And prior to COVID, we were mostly community run. So it was almost all done by volunteers in the community who helped to do everything from planting the seeds to harvesting. And most of our produce went to low-income state-funded preschools in North County, San Diego. When COVID hit, it changed a lot of things for Community Roots Farm. Community Roots Farm is really a safe place in an underserved neighborhood in our community. And so when we started to stop supplying food to the preschools, when we had to close the gates to the community for the safety of our staff and our families and for the community, we really had to think about what we wanted to do in this time. A lot of farms were beginning to sell to do like traditional CSA boxes, but being rooted in our community, we really wanted to make sure that our food was going to people who really needed it. But we also still needed to make sure that we were able to be sustainable ourselves as an organization and as a nonprofit farm. So what we decided to do was we really pivoted our efforts, and I reached out to Mai Nguyen, who was with Young Farm, collaborating and how it is that we can get food to people who need it in the community. And really having conversations with neighbors and other people, other allies about what the real needs are, so that whatever it is that we decided to do was community relevant and community led. And so that is when Mai connected me with Ellie and Foodshed. And from there, we began to do distributions to the community. Till we got to 50, and then it was 100. And finally, today we're doing 200 boxes a week of all local produce from San Diego County that Foodshed is aggregating, as well as from our farm. And so here you can kind of see a little bit about the process of how this works. So there's Tammy, and so she's our programs manager, and she's harvesting food from Community Roots Farm. And so now all of our produce is going into these boxes. And then there's Ella. Every Wednesday morning. And then the third photo is of our distribution. And so you can see the 200 boxes laid out, and that's where we are sorting all of the produce in there. And if you can go to the next slide, there are a lot of really beautiful aspects to this project, but I think what's crucial about it is that we all came together from different agencies, from different organizations, and from different places. And we all wanted to meet a need in our community as an emergency response, but I know that all of us are also grounded in long-term systemic changes in our communities. And we pulled our resources together and really pulled this off. We had very little funding in the beginning, and we worked really hard to get it to where this is today. So we collaborate with Foodshed Distro. We also collaborate with Produce Good, who helps to facilitate harvesting of citrus, blueberries, and other produce that would normally go to waste. And so this picture here is actually an example of one of the weekly boxes that a family would receive. And Another really important partner is the City of Oceanside. So we received emergency funding through a community block grant, the CDBG. September. And I think that this is really important for a number of reasons. One, we're getting this food to people who really need it. I think a lot of these CSA boxes, especially when COVID hit and people were afraid to go to the stores, a lot of the local food was only accessible to those who could afford it. So now we're able to get food to people in underserved communities. And through BCDI's relationships in the city and in these communities and with the City of Oceanside, we the boxes and distribute it to 4 resource centers in the City of Oceanside. The city, when the quarantine had begun, had shut down all face-to-face business, and the only face-to-face business that they continued were these resource centers, because they knew that people in these neighborhoods were more vulnerable, and that the resource centers were these hubs to assist them through these times. So there are City of Oceanside staff there on site, but it's also a hub for other nonprofit organizations that provide resources to people in the neighborhood. And it was really important for us to partner neighborhoods. They're working and they're placed directly in these neighborhoods. It was also a way to distribute the food in a way that reduced stigma as well, because people are comfortable going to the resource centers, and this was really important when we were considering the distribution. And so these ladies you see in the picture are at the Crown Heights Resource Center in Oceanside, you know, they're on the front lines and they're there working for the community, and they are receiving the boxes that are distributed from RICA, from Foodshed, and also the City of Oceanside provides a van, as well as Adrian, who manages all the resource centers, helps to deliver the boxes to them as well. And so they are able to give us feedback from the families about what the needs are, how they're receiving particular kinds of produce, and so that we can make sure that we are providing culturally relevant produce. So a lot of these resource centers were receiving food from food banks. They receive hot meals for those under 18 years old, but they weren't receiving fresh produce that they could take home and cook for their families. And so this food is really filling in that gap and providing nutritious and local food that they can incorporate into their meals. And so I included this last slide. I think it's important to mention, you know, this slide isn't to induce any sort of like savior complex, but what I wanted this slide to do was just to kind of put faces to people in our community. Some of these faces are people who are receiving boxes or help distributing boxes, or are friends in the community, and that this effort all the way along the supply chain is owned by us, by those of us in the community. I think that having this for-profit, nonprofit, and government relationships is really important, because when it comes to engagement in our local civics, this is the change, and these are the things that are going to make an effect in our neighborhoods. And so the more that we are civically engaged with our government and the more that we are electing or hiring people within government who are interested and invested in the community, the more we're going to see projects like this that really reflect what the actual needs are of our communities. And echoing what Ellie was saying earlier, so this emergency response, we're funded through September, and we are going to be continuing to look for other ways to distribute food to the community. Change, and we want this to be partnerships that last, so that we can continue to build upon this and really own our food system in a very local, in a very tangible, and in a really powerful way. And I think that this project of doing 200 boxes a week, sourcing from 28 different farms, is a small but very real example of how we can take a hold of our food system and scale this up. So I will leave it at that. And I'm
Thank you, Bianca. Wow, so powerful. So now we would like to introduce another of the partners from the Foodshed. That is the Project New Village. And we have Diane Moss, who's gonna give us more insights about what they're doing and how they're related to this larger project with the Foodshed.
Thank you. Wow, it's a lot going on here. I had no idea. You know, we talk on a weekly basis. I work and live in southeastern San Diego, and here we're putting something together we call the Good Food District. It's a geographically defined space where we want to engage our neighbors in growing food, really backyard growing, community gardeners. But this year, we will have a truck, right? A farm truck. And the truck has more capacity than to be able to be a part of a network like this that can help us address the issue of food insecurity in our neighborhoods and surrounding neighborhoods. I'm just really, you are unmuted by your host. Okay, I'm just reading the piece. I'm really excited about the opportunity. We're on the front end. I've known Ellie since I've been in this business around food and food justice issues. But to be able to know that we have the capacity to scale up and that they're good people doing good work to work with, it's amazing. So again, by the end of this year, we will have a walk-in refrigerator and a mobile truck in southeastern San Diego. So perhaps our garden setting there can serve as a point of aggregation, a point of distribution for southeastern San Diego from this larger partnership. We even have bigger plans. We bought this space, this garden, so we are working on putting a neighborhood market here within a number of years. It's not predictable, this is brand new to me, but putting a neighborhood market focused on, and it would be great if it was 100% of the produce that you could get here came from the region. We clearly are in touch with the palate of our neighborhood, but we're looking forward because most of the people growing food here, it's a very small scale, like micro small scale, to be able to, I saw one of the points was to match up with beginning farmers or growers. I see the potential for mentoring here in this relationship with our neighborhood folks growing food. So again, our issues is most of the neighborhoods that we serve are food insecure. We do not want to be relying on a system that doesn't have our best interest at heart. So this alternative with people you trust, this is the way to go. And I'm really glad that I'm here today to hear all that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. So incredible to see all the work that your organization is doing in Southeast. So now we will want to maybe talk a little bit more about the staff or the members that are part of the Foodshed. So as looking at the graphic, is kind of like the center of the wheel, and on that we were like looking for what are the systems that we can incorporate in our organization. As an organizational structure, I have the opportunity to practice sociocracy in an eco-village and an intentional community, and also as part member of the Sweet Spot Farm. So I feel that this is a way in which we are like sharing leadership. We have a distributed power system in which all the voices are heard. And there is a very nice like feedback loop that always keep going inside the organization, and you structure everything around a circle framework. And personally, is a governance methodology that allows for horizontal, no hierarchy in the way of like vertical, but in which like all the members of the organization have the same like power, and their voices have the same value. And you have like this, instead of having a majority voting, the decision-making process is distributed along all the members that are participating in the organization. We would like to know more about sociocracy. There are like great resources on sociocracy for all.org. You can see in the screen there is a link over there, and then a book that was written. It's called Many Voices, One Song, and I feel like summarized like very like simply the way that you can incorporate this into your own organizations, projects, or living structures.
Awesome. So we wanted to show you guys how we have our staff organized. We have 6 people working on Foodshed. All of us have only a portion of our time. We're either farming with the rest of it, or running education programs, or only a portion of our time is dedicated to Foodshed right now. And we, this is putting sociocracy into practice. We have our production circle on the left with KK Nan and Bea, and our distribution circle on the right, Rika, Adriana, and myself. And so we thought we would have our staff explain, what they do and why they're excited or interested in being a part of Foodshed. So with that, here is our production circle.
Good morning. My name is Nan Cavazos, and I'm one of the farm mentors at Foodshed. Well, we're trying to work together with other farms to achieve our goals as the distribution center, and also to create different small farms that provide healthy food for our communities. Personally, I hope that Foodshed can create that relationship between distribution and production in a way that helps small farms to scale up their production and achieve their economical goals, as also the regenerative practices of farming, and just bring more healthy food to our communities that are in need of healthy produce.
Hi, I'm KK, and I'm the Food Supply Coordinator and Palma Tribal Gardens Mentor for Foodshed. I'm excited to be a part of Foodshed because I'm passionate about farm viability, environmentally sound farming practices, and fighting for food justice.
My name is Bea Alvarez. I'm the Carbon Sink Project Coordinator here at Solidarity Farm, and in connection with the Foodshed, I oversee some of the different carbon sink projects that are going on like here at the farm, just as a model that can be replicated in other farms about the different practices that we have here regarding carbon sink, soil health, and growing organic food.
What did you see happen when the coronavirus pandemic kind of kicked off? And how did this farm and Foodshed respond to that?
Help people realize how broken the system is in terms of the dependency that we have from food coming from all over the world, instead of focusing on the local farms and the small farms that can support the needs for the community. If I have a hope for the future, is more farms, new farmers, new people involved in the growing of the food, distribution of the food, people supporting local farms, people and the community at large being more interdependent and supporting each other on the food system and make it more accessible for everybody and more just, so people can have access to local grown, ethically grown, beyond organic food, and at the same time knowing where that food is coming from.
All right, so that was our production
circle.
And now we'll hear from our distribution circle.
Hi, my name is Rika, and I'm the community organizer for Foodshed. I'm very excited that Foodshed is bringing healthy food to our low-income communities. I was telling Ellie this morning that I read this quote from Muhammad Ali that says, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." And I was telling her that I think that every single person that works in Foodshed has been paying their rent in this world for a long time. So I'm really excited to work with all of them.
So my name's Ellie Igo, and I am the aggregator for Foodshed. And my job is to buy food from farmers at the highest possible price each week, and then organize it and make sure that it's in the right quantities for delivery to our partners. And the greatest part about being the Foodshed aggregator is that I get to talk to the farmers every week, and I really get a sense of what food is available each season, and learning so much about how to operate as a hub and distribute things in the interest of the farmers we work with.
My name's Adriana Barraza, and I'm Foodshed Cooperative Development Coordinator. At Foodshed, I coordinate direct-to-consumer online orders, generate our weekly newsletter, and I'm overseeing incorporation, legal compliance, and food safety certifications. I work with our team to develop our digital streams of communication and create a solid cooperative structure that other farms can step into. And there's so much beauty in what Foodshed is working to create, and I'm honored to be a small part of it. My dad was a Mexican immigrant who began working the fields in the highly industrialized agriculture of Imperial Valley at the age of 19. And I saw firsthand the toxicity and imbalance of a system that exploits the land and its workers while contaminating the water we bathe in and the air we breathe. I believe Foodshed is part of a larger movement that gets us all closer to our respectful relationship with the land and the people that work it. I'm excited to have arrived at a moment in my life where I stand with the courage to believe that it's possible to have your hands in the dirt, make a living wage, and feed your family good food. To return to the connection with the land that my parents and grandparents so heavily left behind, with respect for the first peoples of this land and their traditional knowledge, and in a way that uplifts our diverse communities and makes fresh and clean food accessible to everyone.
All right. So again, all the people that you saw are farming every day and giving a portion of their time to Foodshed. But there's also all this, like what we call bottom lining that we're having to rapidly learn. And so what we've done is we've taken someone from the distribution side and someone from the production side, and then they funnel into these work groups or circles that you can learn more about how to operate by digging into sociocracy. So those include training and morale. It's not Enrica's job to keep us learning and keep us happy. Marketing, which is Adriana and Bea and myself a little bit. Grant management, KK and I take on that aspect, and then billing and accounting. So again, we call these things bottom lining because their work has to get done well, or things are going to fall through the cracks. Anything to add to that?
No, I think it's a nice visual representation of how, either for your own like projects and organizations, just to see how there is like overlappings and like we're all working together through the same like goals, but everybody having their role and like intersecting in different areas.
And also we talked a lot about knowing who to go to when you have a question about something or you're trying to troubleshoot a project. And so where those circles overlap are your allies in achieving those goals. So hopefully you find it useful. So we wanted to talk a little bit about our challenges and things that we see as opportunities. We definitely don't want to dig too deep into these because they're pretty sticky. But the first one is regulations and red tape. So this is the list from our lovely technical support team of all the different regulations and things that we needed to do by launching the hub. And you know, we all don't have enough time in the day as it is. We're parents, we're responsible for our, we're responsible to our children, we're responsible to our elderly parents, we're busy, farming. And so this red tape is a real soul killer. And so I think that we definitely need to continue to push and have conversations about having a food system that is, if it is our food system, then we don't need these dozens and dozens of agencies telling us, how to keep people safe. So I'll leave it at that. And again, these are links that will be available to everybody. Going the wrong way. So we can't forget the Rona. And what I just wanted to like bring it back to remind us that like we're doing all of this in the context of like an ever-changing and constantly adapting environment where we don't know what's coming next. And so flexibility has been a big part of it. And like,
yes,
like Bianca said, like our efforts, we don't, think, we know how small they are, but they also are, we think it's evidence of what we all can do in the face of these challenges, and how the smaller we are, the more adaptive we can be, when things like this virus come to haunt us.
Yeah. I feel about that like a ripple effect, that you can be like a little drop in the ocean, but that one can bring momentum, especially to initiatives like this, where you're like focusing in providing like healthy food and connecting the local farmers with the community through this like concept of the Foodshed. We all know about, what is your watershed? You might know what it is or not, but really thinking about what the Foodshed is and who are the farmers that are around your area or your region, and, like ignite the connection with, what you're going to put in your table needs to come from a farmer that is no farther than maybe 60 miles away.
Like that, ignite the connections. We wanted to give a shout out to the people who have been igniting our projects. We have had great mentorship and cheerleading from folks, and then also, you know, offerings of future relationships that can be built. Kitchen table consultants and kitchen table advisors. The Cape Valley Farm Shop has been sharing their bylaws with us. The small business support from Stephanie and helping us figuring out our regulations. Mandela Partners and California Farm League are helping us try to figure out how we can pay our farmers up front at the beginning of the season instead of waiting until they deliver the produce. So we're just so grateful to all of you, some of you that are on the call today, and to our donors and the people who have stepped up to support us.
Certainly.
It is a work in progress, but we are mighty when we are together. So with that, we just wanted, you know, before we turn it back to Sona, we just wanted to remind everyone, you know, that when we're stewarding the land, when we're connected to the rightful owners, or the rightful, you know, the history of the indigenous people who have been on this land, and we're stewarding it in relation, when we're sharing it and we're doing our work to build the soil. We were having a conversation the other day. It's absolutely ridiculous to imagine that we would allow it to leak out of our communities. It is far too precious. It's far too important to the health and the, you know, the survival of all of us to allow it to leak out of those communities that we care about. And so, you know, this whose food, our food is from a riff from street protests of whose streets, our streets, right? And that really, like, if we take control of the production, then we should also be taking charge of where it goes.
Yeah, I feel it's our responsibility, especially in these times, and not only as an emergency response, like Bianca and Diane also mentioned, like having this as a long-term project. I feel like a shift in the food system will impact our communities like greatly. So having the interdependence being like the little carrot that we follow, and yeah, you know, like really build these relationships with the land, with the communities, with the people growing the food, with the people that need this food is our work. And moving forward, I feel that this is the most impactful task that we can take.
So with that, we would love to turn it over to you guys. Thoughts, conversation, feedback, questions. Bring it on.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Ellie, Bea, Bianca, and Diane. I do have a couple questions here from the chat box that I'd love to put out to our presenters. The first one here from PJ. What are your plans for 2021 and beyond? How can we help expand these efforts to all of San Diego County? What is needed to scale this and other similar programs?
Great. So definitely, I think all of us have slightly different answers to that. And I definitely want to hear from Diane and Bianca if they have ideas. But, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do, we have a cooperative planting calendar. And so we're trying to look out as far in the future as we can to identify what our markets will be. And so I think that really the success of Foodshed depends to some extent on our ability to do what Bianca has done, which is unlock some of those public resources and funnel them into healthy food production, that we transition from emergency into recovery. And we're explicit about that. At the same time, we're trying to be responsible about finding alternative markets. So if those 200 free box distributions are no longer feasible, we're actively planning for where we get those 200 distributions from. So Bianca's working to facilitate a relationship back to the preschools. If the schools were to start back up, we're talking Kitchens for Good and other catering companies. So we are looking out at like, how does this operate as a real, as a food hub with, outside of this context. That said, I would also just, I don't think we've seen we've only seen the tip of the iceberg for the impact on our food system, on the industrial food system. And we joke all the time, like we've been criticizing the industrial food system forever. Thank goodness it didn't collapse, because we would be in such dire situation right now. So, the plan is to be responsible, to be, not grow too quickly, so that we can sustain stuff and be reliable for our farmers. Bianca, do you want to jump in?
Well, I think that another really important aspect of it is, we were talking about like taking ownership of our food system, and part of that is having conversations with people in our community to see what the real needs are. And, none of this can be done in a silo. We're smart people, especially when we work together, we can pull many different resources together. And so when we have real conversations with our community, that will help to address where the needs are of where food can be distributed, where resources are for funding, and also where we can sell. So like, as Ellie mentioned, we are looking at preschools that we were selling to previously and potentially expanding upon that. We are also selling at our farm CSA shares that people can purchase and retail, and a portion of the proceeds of that goes directly into buying boxes for people that are food insecure. And there's other sorts of conversations that are happening within our community, looking at where the needs are. And once we address those needs, then it makes it, then we're able to kind of frame it and present it in a way for funding, to build capacity and build relationships.
Awesome. Yeah, the other thing is, Dan, I don't know if you want to comment, but the project in Southeast is going to be scaling up. Yeah. And so also we plan to like pivot some of the food into Project New Village.
So my takeaway from this is to be mindful that there'll be a shift in terms of how consumers or people who eat food, to be educated that local is the best, right? And what the capacity that we have here, and to maybe be a bridge or be a conduit for people getting used to change, right? And trying to scale up. And clearly, keeping this in mind, we want to do this market. Our market will, again, it's everything is moving forward on that, and building an inventory that is respectful to this process. And if this goes well, then we can do other points. Ours is to connect and be a point of where this can be delivered and be beneficial to the people who receive it. This is just great. I'm just really excited about it.
Thank you. Thanks, Al. Thanks, Al. I have another question here related to the regulations and red tape. Is there an effort to umbrella those details under Foodshed to reduce the friction for new farmers entering into our food system? It's a complicated process, and curious if there's a legal and or setup side of Foodshed mentorship.
Yeah, thanks, PJ, for that question. Yes, so that is almost, that is the purpose of, kind of putting, learning, we call it making our path by walking, like the Zapatistas say, and then making sure that we pass that information on. And one of the most challenging things for new farmers is trying to learn it all at once. Yeah. And so we've really seen with the PAMA mentorship project, let them focus on production. Foodshed's able to buy the produce and help them distribute it, use our experience to distribute it to their community. And then slowly but surely, getting them set up to be more independent and still sell into Foodshed and help it to grow. And ultimately to become shareholders and owners of Foodshed, so that as the food hub profits, so too do the shareholders. So it is definitely the goal to like umbrella some of those things and hold and product liability insurance, other things for small farms, but also to be a voice to advocate for shifting that. It says that every single person that we buy from needs to register to be a CSA under the new CSA laws, and that just feels really overwhelming and intimidating, especially when we're buying from like urban farmers, and it just isn't feasible.
I think that speaks to the gap that is between the policymakers and the actual people like growing the food and finding like markets. And I know how daunting can be, especially for new farmers and like people stepping into like growing food and trying to get that food into the community, into people's homes. And the idea is, like Ellie was just mentioning, just like by the practices that we can like shift that like huge like red tape that's usually put on top of small scale like farms, and allow these new farmers to tap into the Foodshed, get their food distributed, and like get through the mentorship more like resources about how they can like work around all those limitations.
Great, thank you. Another question around how are you working on demonstration farm network, and is this one of the ideas that emerged from the carbon sink farming convergence?
Yeah, definitely. One of the coolest things about Foodshed is that it's happening really organically, and this was kind of our goal. Like when Benjamin Farm, when Norman and Ruben show up to drop off their citrus and avocados, they always go for a walk and we chit chat about the situation. And it's like, oh, well, our pump broke. Oh, well, did you know you could go to NRCS? And maybe FarmLink could help you get a loan, right? So we're just by being able to, farmers don't hang out with each other because we're busy people, but by forcing ourselves to, because we're delivering and making money in the process, it's been really positive. Same thing, I went and picked up produce at Tina's farm. We're having, conversations about her squirrel traps and how she might, whatever it might be. It's that interface that's happening because we're seeing each other. And then I would add to that, we are actively seeking funding to create an equipment lending library to carry out the carbon sink process, the carbon sink research that we're doing. And so not only can we dialogue about, what's happening, but we can actually say like, hey, well, we got, this wheel hoe, and why don't you take it and try it out at your farm and see if you want to invest in one instead of, buying it off of the Johnny's website for $500 and realizing you don't really like it. So all of those things, yes, are definitely built into what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and maybe to answer that question, yeah, that was one of the things that emerged from the carbon sink convergence, because the project that was is happening here at Solidarity Farm and the Palma tribal farms is an example of what other people can like implement depending on their ecosystem, the climate and such. But I feel like a successful carbon sink program or project can be like replicated in the region as well, and having more farms applying these resources and these practices in their own fields. I think that is gonna like help greatly to the region.
Great, thank you. And another question around whether you have enough produce to draw from, or if you're looking for additional growers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the chicken and the egg, the dance that we're going through right now. We do have enough produce to meet the needs of our current distribution. But now that we're getting the hang of this, we feel like we can add more farmers if we add more community partners. And so that both kind of have to come together. And like that image, like we may be the connectors, but we can't make those things happen. So that's what we're looking for.
Great, thank you. Another question around Oh, I'm sorry. You know, Bianca, did you want to respond to that at all? Any of these questions?
I was just gonna I got logged offline for a little bit and I just came back on, but kind of a carry on to the first question and this one was that I think that as far as sustainability and longer term for these projects and farm availability from the food shed side, which Ellie and you all represent, but the more, even though we are currently in emergency response serving people in underserved communities, if people decide to purchase locally from Foodshed and from local farmers, of course, I'm probably obviously stating the obvious, but that's what's going to increase the capacity for us to fund these projects further and to be able to buy more produce. So the food system goes all the way from the farmer all the way to the consumer. So I just wanted to put that note in there.
Great, thank you. Thank you for adding that, Bianca. There's another question here around, in addition to funding and resources like infrastructure, like walk-in coolers, are there other ways that institutional partners can support you all?
Right. Darn, Elle, I think you're probably on the call and we didn't give you a shout out for the amazing work that you're doing. So Elle Mari works at UC SD Community Health and has written a grant and is buying walk-in coolers for farmers, some that are part of Foodshed, some that are not. So that kind of, I know it's really Diane's gonna get one and Bianca is gonna get one. And so we're gonna be able to use that network to move food around. So I think that like real tangible support is super, super awesome. And then just the last thing of finding out the creative ways to unlock funding that isn't just like private sector foundations. The city of Oceanside really stepped up with using CARES Act money and community development block grant funds. The county has those funds, and every city has them. So, they may already be dedicated, but it doesn't take a huge amount of money to make this project work, and it really can fuel the food movement that we want to see with more local farms, and new farmers getting into production.
Great, thank you. I think that might be all the questions in the chat box. Oh wait, maybe another one. This one might be around around competition. Are you looking to compete with Specialty Produce, which is a local distributor here at all? Just thinking about your competition in this space.
We are not competing.
We refuse to compete. We live in a metropolis of millions of people, right? There's 3 million in San Diego. Who knows how many in Riverside and LA? Like there is no need to compete. We want Specialty Produce to thrive. I think though that it is really important that the piece that we're trying to figure out, this like farmer ownership of distribution, so that a higher amount of a bigger piece of the pie goes back to farmers. If we're not going to do it that way, we have to figure out other ways, to subsidize and support farms. We didn't want to make this a conversation about how hard it is to farm, and how expensive it is to farm. But there's lots of ways, to how do you call it, skin this apple. So without competing.
Yeah, and I feel like it will take a major collaboration effort for all these companies, organizations, just to make the shift. Ultimately, we're talking about creating a new food system for the region of San Diego, for the many different little municipalities, towns, and the counties at large. And we all need to get involved with this. It's not about competing against another organization or company that is doing this. It's just a joining effort to make this not only like an emergency response, but the new norm. You know, this is how in San Diego we deal with our food system and how successfully we can do it.
Well, I feel like that's a really good segue, Sona, back to you, just being conscious of the time and like our ability to take these visions that we have and scale them up, and the process that you're going to be facilitating here that we can all get involved in and encourage others to get involved in. So I'm going to share my screen again. It's this one. And punt it back to you.
Thanks, Ellie. Before I do that, I wanted to just make sure I got this last question in here for y'all. And it's around how can folks get involved? How can folks get involved?
Well, they can get involved through San Diego County Food Vision. You can definitely, I mean, we're going to be scaling up our direct-to-consumer project, so you can go on Foodshed Small Farm Distro. I think it's foodshedDistro.com, and learn more about how you could like get the food, and then just like stay in touch because this is constantly evolving. Also, if you happen to be in Oceanside or near there, supporting BCDI, and then and our other partners, and then also Diane's project in Southeast. Like, let's get as local as we possibly can, work in our zone 1 with each other, and then connect in this hub model. I think that's where it's at.
Yeah, and especially it depends, you know, where you're coming from. If you're interested in, you know, supporting it because you're a farmer, or supporting it because you're like a consumer, or supporting it because you want to, you know, like give financial support to this endeavor or initiative. There are like many different ways that you can be engaged with this.
So talk about yours, Sona, because it's really exciting. And Rachel and everyone else, Ellie at Food System Alliance.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ellie, Bea, Bianca, and Diane, for sharing your wisdom. And thank you for the amazing work that you're doing to support BIPOC farmers and communities. Foodshed Distro, you know, it's an amazing community-rooted, equity-focused model for connecting farmers and eaters. It's connecting urban and rural communities. It's an emergency response and a long-term solution for strengthening food systems and advancing food justice in San Diego County. So as Ella, you know, as we've all sort of been, you know, talking about, but not really talking about, as COVID-19 has exposed all these cracks across the food system, and it's really highlighted the need for building a stronger local food and farm economy. And models like Foodshed Distro are doing exactly that, really focusing on strengthening or weaving together the connections needed to build a viable food system that can support local communities today and, of course, into future generations. So the San Diego Food System Alliance has, fortunately, we launched this before COVID, and I think we've realized that it's really timely that we have this opportunity right now to envision, collectively envision what it is that is not working and what it is that we need in order to build a common agenda for our region, and figure out how we attract more programs. How do we create more programs like Foodshed Distro, but also how do we attract more resources, dollars, and of course policies that are going to support models like Foodshed Distro and other community building, equity driven models that are really going to be able to promote resilience in our region. So San Diego Food Vision is a plan to help us get there. We're currently, the next slide shows that we are currently engaging the community very broadly in this process. So we have a specific Engage website where we're encouraging everyone to participate. There's lots of ways to share what is important to you, but at the end of the day, what we're looking for are your voices to share what it is that you think we need to catalyze a better, sustainable, equitable food system in our region. So you can find more at our website. That's all I'll really say about it. But really, I think the biggest thing that I would like to impart is how this model captures so many of the priorities that we've been seeing need to be elevated as we think about the future of food systems in our region. So thank you again to Ellie, Bea, Bianca, Diane for sharing your work with us today. And thank you all for joining us and being interested in this work, and hopefully continuing to figure out how to engage in this and elevate work that both Foodshed Distro is doing and others are doing throughout the region to create a strong food system in San Diego County. Thank you again. Thanks to all of you.
Bye, Sona and Rachel. Thank you for facilitating, and a special shout out to Bianca if you can still hear us, for joining us from the field. Thank you, everyone. Please reach out if you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions. We are open and want to learn from you.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for everybody to get involved, to actually shift the food system to what we really wanted to see, like working for the communities, working for the local farms, and the people that are, like so intensively, like shifting this narrative about the food and the communities that need it the most. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hope you all have a wonderful week.